Should you focus on calories or food quality if you're looking to achieve a weight loss goal? Honestly, you can lose weight both ways, but one of the ways is a lot easier and tends to result in lasting change. Let's dive into it. My name's Autumn. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's nutrition human performance, and today's video is sponsored by Kettle and Fire. More on them in a bit. Okay, so first let's talk about weight loss with just counting calories. Calories is just a way that we're measuring energy, and that energy can be used in a lot of different ways. So obviously it's used to power your body to make movement. It's used for your brain, your muscles, your heart, etc. But also that energy can be stored in the form of fat as well. Now, if you're simply looking at weight loss from a calorie perspective, then what you're looking at is burning more of that energy than what you're taking in. The rough estimate is that you need to burn about 3,500 calories to lose 1 pound of fat. Now, those who are advocates of purely just the calories in, calories out method will often quote the first law of thermodynamics, which can be boiled down to energy cannot be created or destroyed. They'll often cite this as like the main reason why you should only count calories, because it doesn't matter where those calories are coming from. Ultimately, you have to burn them. They just don't disappear. And in reality, they're not wrong, but they're also not entirely right. And if you were to just simply cut your calories and try to eat less of what you're currently eating, there's actually a lot of issues that can result. In fact, there's 4 really important things that happen when you're just counting calories. The first is that counting calories doesn't account for other systems in the body, because we're not really burning the same amount of calories every single day. In fact, things can actually slow down the metabolism, and the metabolism is how quickly we're going to be burning through those calories. So for example, when you're getting poor sleep or if you're really stressed, these things can actually slow down our metabolism. Plus, low calorie foods tend to have 0 satiety level, and satiety is how full and satisfied we are from a meal. Again, if you're purely looking at just simply eating less, often the lowest calorie foods are also the highest carbohydrate foods, and higher carbohydrate foods tend to have a lower satiety level and don't raise our satiety hormones as much. This means that you're going to be way more hungry, have a lot more cravings, and make it a lot more difficult to achieve your goal. The second issue with just simply calorie counting is it doesn't account for where that weight is coming from. So earlier I said that those who are purely calorie advocates will note that it takes about 3,500 calories to burn 1 pound of fat. That is assuming that you are actually burning fat, because you can lose weight from a lot of different areas in the body, including muscle. In fact, losing weight with just typical calorie restriction usually results in about 25% of that weight coming from muscle. And if that doesn't seem like a big deal to you, it really should, because muscle is one of the biggest drivers of our metabolism, not to mention all the additional health benefits that are so important for long-term health. But when we have less muscle, it starts to slow our metabolism and we burn less and less fuel. We also become more efficient with our calories, which might sound like a good thing, but again, in terms of weight loss, it's not, especially if you're going about it with just purely calorie restriction, because when we become more efficient with our calories, it means that we can do more with less calories. This often happens with endurance runners because people often use cardio for a calorie burn, but in the beginning, they'll burn a lot more calories per mile versus as they get more trained. And that's because the body is getting better and more efficient at using those calories and therefore burning less. Okay, the third issue is just simply cutting calories is that this is a very nutrient poor approach. Typically, what most people are doing when they're simply cutting calories is cutting the amount that they're currently used to eating. They aren't actually changing what they're eating. And most people's diet is already very nutrient poor, so if you're cutting back even further on what you're consuming, then you're getting even less of these important nutrients, especially if they're from inherently low calorie foods like bars or cereals or snacks. They're especially low in crucial nutrients that are needed to support long-term health and wellness, like vitamin B12, choline, vitamin A, zinc, and iron, which is detrimental to so many different aspects of health. So sure, you might be losing weight, but the more accurate way of describing this is wasting away. And then the fourth issue is simply counting calories is it doesn't account for human psychology. As I mentioned earlier, just cutting calories makes us hungry. And as humans, we have the need to rebel. But on top of that, we also have a biological need to eat. Add on top of all of that the increased cravings that result when we eat less than what our body needs. And there's only so long that we can stick to this protocol before there's going to be binge-like behavior. Now, interestingly, when you focus on food quality, a lot of the calories issue actually tends to work itself out, which before we get into that, I want to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Kettle and Fire, which speaking of quality, Kettle and Fire is a really high quality bone broth company. They take bones from grass-fed cows and they slowly simmer it to make sure that they can pull out as much collagen as possible. So unlike a lot of other broth broths, Kettle and Fire is packed with high quality sources of collagen, which is also important for helping you to feel full and satisfied. Now, I know how to make bone broth. I've made bone broth in the past, but honestly, especially as a new mom, I just don't have the time to be doing that. But I do want to make sure that I'm eating the most nutrient dense foods possible to help support not just a body recomposition goal, but also a health goal. So I love that I always have Kettle and Fire in my pantry that I can add to pretty much any meal. I love using their original chicken or beef bone broth, and I'll put it as the base of my soups, my stews, or my chili. In fact, probably the thing I use it the most often in is my bone broth chili recipe, which I've actually shared on my blog before using Kettle and Fire. Kettle and Fire just tastes great. It's so convenient, and it makes adding high quality collagen into my life really easy. And Kettle and Fire is super generous, and they're offering my community 20% off your bone broth purchase when you use code AUTUMNBAITS at checkout. So make sure you stock up. Dad joke. Make sure you stock up and click the link down in the description below. Okay, so let's talk about food quality. Now, there's different ways to define this. You can describe it as like having high quality with pasture raised or organic, or you could be just talking about using whole food and not processed food. But you can have a lot of like high sugar, ultra processed organic foods. So I like to use more of the whole food definition for food quality. So if you're focusing on food quality rather than counting calories, you're focused on eating as close to the original source as possible. So this means eating a lot of high quality sources of animal-based meats, dairies, eggs, and then of course veggies and fruits. Some people, depending on their carb sensitivity, might even use whole food sources of grains, but not so much flours. And what's great about when you focus on food quality is that these foods also tend to be high in protein, fat, and fiber. And that trio significantly helps to raise our overall satiety hormones and prevent us from feeling hungry. In fact, this is so strong, it literally acts as like an internal calorie tracker, helping you to stop eating before you're going to be overeating. This is in comparison to ultra processed foods that do a terrible job of raising satiety hormones and therefore don't trigger that internal response to tell us to stop eating, which is why it is nearly impossible not to overeat on those ultra processed foods. And because of this, those ultra processed foods have been studied to have addictive like properties, which means that you have to add a level of discipline to eating your food and therefore counting the calories of that food if you're focused on eating more ultra processed versus when you focus on the higher quality, less processed foods, you don't need to have that level of discipline. Eating high quality foods, especially if you balance them out properly with protein, fat, and fiber, also helps to prevent muscle loss. And that muscle loss means that you're not going to get that same dip in metabolism that people typically get when they just cut calories. So you don't need to keep eating less and less and less in order to achieve and maintain your goal. In fact, depending on how you do it, you could even be needing to eat more by the end of your body recomposition / weight loss journey. This was the case for me. I've shared my whole story on that if you want to check it out right here. So not only is focusing on quality when doing it the right way can help to maintain metabolism and make achieving your goals so much easier, but it's also so much better for you. So it's so much more nutrient dense. Ultimately, we need to eat for a variety of reasons, one of them being obviously energy, but the other the nutrient quality. High quality food is also nutrient dense food. Those high quality foods are going to be rich in those important micronutrients like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K2, choline, zinc, iron, and folate. These are foods that help us to feel energized, help our brain to function, and even help us to form healthy, thriving babies during pregnancy. So eating high quality foods helps us to optimize for health while also specifically prioritizing body fat instead of muscle mass. But with all that said, it can be done wrong. And I've seen it done wrong a lot because you could be eating high quality foods, but in a totally imbalanced way. This is actually what I did for a very long time, so I'm very familiar with this mistake. An example of this would be like somebody eating a lot of veggies and not eating nearly enough protein. Or kind of the same thing, but switched from like a keto perspective, eating a lot of fat, but not really having any protein or even fiber-rich foods. We want to make sure that we have a balance of each of these nutrients to actually get the benefits of each. In fact, with weight loss, there's this theory called the protein leverage hypothesis, which says that as humans, we're always searching for protein or the amino acids within protein. And we're always eating until we actually eat enough of those amino acids. So if we're not eating enough protein, then that could cause us to well overeat beyond our body's needs because we're constantly searching for those amino acids in our food. Versus if we actually prioritize getting high quality sources of protein, it helps to regulate our intake so that we don't eat well beyond our body's needs. And this actually makes a ton of sense because a recent study showed that the most nutrient dense foods, the foods that have the highest amount of important nutrients like the vitamin K2, the vitamin A, zinc, and iron, are primarily going to be from animal-based high protein sources, with the exception of leafy green veggies as one of the other foods. So as we focus on eating more high quality protein, we're also going to be getting a lot of those really important micronutrients too. And we're also going to be working toward our weight loss goals as well. So even if you are focused on food quality, which is a great step in the right direction, you also need to make sure that you're balancing out properly with protein, fat, and fiber, with protein really being the biggest focus. And the reason why it's the biggest focus is because it does have the biggest impact on sparing muscle loss, helping with prioritizing burning fat, and quite honestly, it's the one people forget the most. Which I have a video that actually shows you how much protein we need, as well as the best sources. If you want to check that out, I'll have it linked right up here. Also, if you're new to my channel and you love this science-backed information, make sure you subscribe right here. Come out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video.